I counted 24 warthogs. And I just looked at my wife, and this is not, I said, I found heaven. Like, I just realized, like, this is where I've got to be.
Hello, and welcome to the first ever proper episode of the Wild Dispatch. I'm Robin, and from now on, every week, I'm going to be sharing a collection of stories and skills from the wild. I'm already humbled by the huge number of people who've been willing to completely spill their guts for this fledgling project, so thank you, everyone involved. But I'm going to kick this thing off with an interview with someone who is closely connected with a subject that is close to my heart, and that is hunting with a bow. My guest today is Fred Hammer. He's a hunting guide or professional hunter, or PH as they're called in South Africa, where he lives. And although he guides all kinds of different clients, he particularly specializes in walk and stalk hunting with a bow. Now, I've had the pleasure of following, I should probably say, chasing Fred around the African bush. First of all, wondering how is he managing to do this, and second, just dying to know the story that led him to this point of complete expertise in the wilderness. So, I'm delighted to share his story with you today. Thank you, Fred, for sharing it. And let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.
Fred Hammer, welcome to the Wild Dispatch.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here, man. It's yeah, last time we were together, it was in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, and if I remember correctly, I was running around the thickets, chasing you, trying to keep up with you, but somehow moving silently around the bushes and approaching these incredible animals. And my mind was just completely blown because I've always been someone who feels like, oh, to be sneaky, you have to be super silent, super careful and quiet. And if anything, yeah, it was a bit of a light bulb moment hanging out with you for a while and seeing, oh, actually, you can move around amongst these highly evolved animals and not be detected. So ultimately, I was dying to hear more, and I want to hear your story and hear like how it all began, how you managed to learn these skills, and when your connection with wild places first began.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, no, it was awesome hunting with you and obviously just showing you a little bit of the ropes, how we do it down in Africa. And yeah, when you're hunting with guys that are not from here, you just realize how blessed we are. Just the most amazing places we get to hunt, and we just live here, and it's a huge blessing. So always a privilege to take guys like yourself out there and yeah, just show them how we dance around the bushveld with our bows. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah. So should we get into how I started hunting? Is this where we're going?
Yeah, I mean, let's just start. First of all, like we were in the Eastern Cape, and that's an area that I hadn't been to before, and it was interesting because I guess a lot of the other places I've been to are pretty dry, but the Eastern Cape at the time it was January, so it was super humid and hot, and yeah, very surprising kind of climate for me. But is that where you always grew up, or where did you start off in South Africa?
Okay, so yeah, so my name is Fred Hammer, and I'm a South African. So we are in the southern tip of Africa, and yeah, so I originally was born in a place called Transvaal or Gauteng, as it's known now, and which was actually in the city. And if you could imagine being born like in a well-known hospital like in New York City, um, I was born in a place right in the heart of Johannesburg, and yeah, so I
Wow.
landed up in the city, and my previous two generations were farmers. So my dad, sort of moved down to the city, and I found myself in the city. But obviously, genetically, being in the bush and farming was in my blood. So, I raged against the sort of city
Yeah.
life and corporate world as a youngster. And I was very fortunate to have a grandfather who was completely crazy about hunting and fishing. And so, from a very early age, he used to take me fishing and hunting. And as soon as I think I was shooting shotgun at about 7 years of age, and then later progressed. I think I only shot my first like buck or antelope at about the age of 15, but we did a lot of wing shooting and a lot of fishing before then. And then,
Mm.
slowly I progressed a lot more into hunting. Um, yeah, so we were very lucky in that sense. We had a farm which we did quite a bit of hunting on. It was a stock farm in the Free State, but yeah, we were able to uh, do quite a bit of hunting and stuff there, which sort of
And was
started the
that
love for wildlife and animals.
yeah, was that far from Joburg, or was it? Because I know there are some areas just a couple of hours away from such a huge city, but there is quite a lot of wilderness. A few hours drive, you can get out into the bush. So is that the situation where that piece of land was?
Yeah, so this piece of land was probably about 3 hours away from the city, so it wasn't the closest land which you can
Mm.
do outdoor stuff. I mean, I used to do quite a bit of dove wing shooting, literally like 20 minutes from our Tambo International Airport is where, so any hunter that flies into South Africa will land there, and they would literally
Uh,
be over like, well, not over the flight path, but close enough that you could hear them. And we shot, there's a lot of like maize fields, and so you could technically start hunting quite close to Johannesburg, but your sort of more unspoilt open areas are, maybe sort of from a half an hour, 45 minutes out the city, and then you just hit African bushveld and plains, and so some really great spots, not too far from the city. Just getting out the city rush and out the traffic is your biggest challenge, but once you're out there, it's amazing. So there's lots of opportunities. Yeah, so we weren't that close, but we were close enough that we were going there maybe once or twice a month. And as soon as we got to the farm, we would be chasing guinea fowls and pheasants with our shotguns and that type of thing, which was very cool.
yeah. No, it sounds it. So, at what point did you decide that you wanted to start using a bow? I mean, actually, I guess you were about to say, when was it the first time you kind of switched to like big game? And I say big game, there's some very big game in South Africa. So I guess, but big game in its kind of conventional sense, antelope or those kind of animals. And that was with a shotgun still, or did you move to a rifle first before deciding that you wanted to move to a bow?
Yeah. Can I tell you a little funny story about my hunting before we get there?
Oh, please do. Please do.
So, just to understand a little bit of the way I grew up. So, I grew up as an Afrikaner, which is like of Dutch descent, um,
Yeah.
and so most of the Afrikaner people are like very outdoor, very farming type of people. It's just the way that we've had to survive being in Africa and growing as sort of uh, you know not a colony, but like as Afrikaners. And so anyway, so we speak Afrikaans, and I was in Afrikaans junior school, so my English wasn't really good. Um, and so this opportunity came. I don't know why, but my folks wanted to send us to this private school,
Okay.
which is only English. And the
Mm-hmm.
Afrikaans people are quite, uh, um, like churchy people, in some respects. So they got good like family values and all of that type of stuff. And so eventually, my folks wanted to send us to this private school. I was about 11 years old, and we basically failed all the entrance exams because we couldn't speak English. It was like
Yeah,
really
of
challenging.
course.
And then I'll never forget, the headmaster like called us in, and he just said to my folks were sitting there and we were sitting there, and just said, "Look, you guys have failed all the tests, but we need Afrikaans people to come and teach the kids at school good manners." Okay, so they allowed us into the school, and it's a beautiful school. It's like this big school. It's got these sport fields, like 230 hectares. It's quite a big school in the middle of like the city.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually, and the school's so like big into sport, and you're like, as a kid, you're playing like two sports on a day, and maybe like four different sports in a week, and it's just crazy. So our hunting season runs from 1st of May to I think the end of July or August, depending, for what it is, wing shooting and hunting antelope and stuff. And so that school was huge into soccer or football. I don't know what you call it in the States, but soccer. And so it was about halfway through soccer season, and like all sports compulsory, like you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah. Yeah.
like not be part. So I remember like being in class, and my teacher, that sort of did most of our classes. You had like one class you go to, and all your subjects would be given there. And he pulled me out one day, and he just said like, he's going to talk to me about something quite serious. I said, yeah, no, sure, talk to me, what's going on? And he was like quite a big guy, and I was still like very small. And he just says to me like, what's been going on? Like, we don't see you at soccer, and there's no attendance, you're not playing any matches, like what's going on? And so I look up at him, and I look at him and I say, listen, but sir, it's hunting season. Like, my grandfather has booked all my hunting trips. Like, I don't have a weekend open. And so he looks at me. He's an English guy, and he looks at me with like this perplexed look, like, is this kid crazy? And I'm looking at him like, how could he just ask me why I'm not doing sport, in our winter months? And so basically, what happened is I never kicked a soccer ball at that school in my life, and I basically just hunted. So from an early age, like, yeah, I was very grateful to my grandfather and to my dad, for teaching us about the outdoor life. But that was just sort of, why I never really fitted into the city. Um,
Yeah.
but
Funny.
yeah, I'll never forget that day. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it just shows such a cultural difference, doesn't it? Like, if it's not even, I guess it sounds like the guy that you're talking to, your teacher, wasn't even aware that it, like, that hunting season was at that time, right? Like, if he's wondering why, I guess anyone who knows what's going on is going to have a clue or an inkling where you are. But clearly, yeah, clearly that's not his life choices. So yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It is. So you mentioned like, how did I get into bow hunting?
Yeah.
Um, so there's a couple of things that played a part in that. Um, as I as I grew old, I was in varsity, and what happened in our country was, the police got pretty bad at doing gun renewals and applications, and there was a stage where, um, we really could not even apply for guns. It took years. They were so backdated and just misadministration. So I was like 18 or 19 or 20, and all I wanted to do was hunt. But then we couldn't hunt anymore because we weren't allowed to take our father's guns, hunting.
Yes. Okay.
And then I was studying for college or university exams, and I was still lying like on my bed studying, and I was just like going through it, and I was, just feeling sorry for yourself, all the work that you got to study, and then my uncle phoned me, and he said I should quickly pop by. He's just bought something new. Now my uncle was a big fisherman and hunter and a bow hunter. I didn't know that, but um, so when I got to his house, taking a break from studying, he took out this bow, and so he said, no, I should try shooting it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I had a couple of shots at his house there, and then I remember like after an hour I went back to my studying, and at that moment I just like realized like I've got to start bow hunting. Like, I don't need a license, I can go buy a bow. And it wasn't long after that I walked into the bow shop and bought a Bowtech Guardian at that stage. um,
Nice.
and so yeah, and then I just knew that I don't have to wait for this gun license thing. I could start hunting, and then this whole journey of um, bow hunting and the journey it's taken me on started. It was just an enabler for me to get hunting again, but obviously it was
Yeah.
a major journey that started
Yeah. I
from
mean,
that point.
it
Yeah.
kind of like a stroke of luck in a way, right? Like, because if anything I've learned from bow hunting is it teaches you good habits. You know, you have to learn the skills early on. Yeah, I think at least with a rifle, it's great to start hunting with a rifle because you can get success quickly. But there are certain things with a bow you just, you know, with a rifle you can get away with. You just can't do it with a bow. You know, so I feel like it's a great way to like learn. So, oh yeah. So how old were you when you got this first bow? Sorry if you said before.
Yeah, so I think I was about 20 years old, eh?
Cool.
20 years old. And just adding to what you said, look, there's very few things in life where you learn as much from doing things wrong. Like when you're bow hunting, the amount of lessons you learn that you take with you when you've done stuff right is very little. And they're only right because of the 99 wrong steps you've had to do before that. So, yeah, bow hunting's a tough, well earned experience that you gain over years from what not to do.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure, man. Like, so okay, so you've got your bow. You're 20 years old. You got all these skills already from doing a bunch of hunting beforehand. Was it like a hard wake up call? You suddenly like trying to get close with the bow, close enough to make the shot, you know, you get near and draw back and suddenly everything runs away, or was that like a smooth transition for you? You already had a good understanding.
Okay. So now this is a cool story. So what happened is we in varsity, right?
Yeah.
And my mate's got this family farm up in Limpopo. It's on this beautiful river, and
Okay.
it's just like one of the favorite places to go in the world. It's just teeming with warthogs and impala and bushbuck and kudu. It's like wild. And so, any case, so our varsity group um, goes once a year on a trip, and the trip is Dubai. So I study construction management,
Okay.
and so this trip is to go to Dubai. And I'd been there maybe like 2 years ago with my family and had a look around, and it was quite cool, you know. And obviously, like every year that you're not in Dubai, it changes, like doubles and so on. It's crazy,
Yeah.
and it was booming at that stage. So basically, what happened is the whole class went to Dubai. Everyone booked tickets except Frederick Hammer. And I phoned up my good mate, uh, and I said to him, "Listen, champ, my class is going like overseas. I've been to Dubai. I'm not going there again. I've got no interest in going again. Why don't we take our bows and then go on like a hunting trip at your farm, your family farm?"
Nice.
And
Nice.
he was in. So basically, when the whole like class jetted off, I stayed behind. We packed a double cab Colt Rodeo bucky with our bows, and like all set for like 2 weeks of bow hunting.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we did the long mission. It was amazing. So we drove up there, and I remember we saw buffalo and inyala, and we were just like so mesmerized by all the game. And then we had this huge thunderstorm. So as we're driving, the roads are just wet, and we don't know if we're going to make our destinations. It's at nighttime. So we arrive at the farm. It's like on the Botswana border, basically at the junction, like the start of the Big Limpopo River. It's like just wild Africa. And so we spent 2 weeks hunting there. And the funny story is we literally just woke up in the morning. We hunted the whole entire day. We have something called a scuttle, which is like a little gas bright
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
that Kadak made. Yeah, yeah,
It's almost like a lightweight wok, right? Almost like a lightweight wok that sits on top of a gas burner, a big one. Yeah.
exactly. So we would go out in like this old beat up single cab farm vehicle with our bows, and we didn't have leafy tops in those days. So we literally cut off bushes, and we had taped them to our shoulders, taped them to our cap, and we looked like real bushes, probably much better than the stuff we wear today. So we used to go stalking, animals. We were quite. I mean, I'd hunted my whole life, but this is like different. And we so we'd hunt the whole morning. We would then go back to the vehicle, completely beat up and tired of stalking and getting our backsides beaten by clever animals. We'd have this huge scuttle, take our shoes off, be next to the river or next to a big pan. There'd be fish eagles like flying around, and then after that we'd get back at it right up until dark. And we didn't have like our GPSs and stuff, so often we didn't know where the bucky was because everything's flat there. So it was always a struggle getting back to the vehicle, and yeah, we'd have a big barbecue at night, and we'd just sleep. It'd be almost like no talking. We'd just be so tired. So this was about 2 weeks, And we got close to so many animals, but we were so inexperienced. We don't know, like, we try to get too close, because everyone said to us 20 yards, like, you got to get within 20 yards. And like, we
Yeah.
just couldn't figure out how to get 20 yards with like this little tree in front of us. But um, I would have done better with a spear. So the funny thing about the whole trip is we didn't shoot one animal because we were so scared of wounding, so scared that we're not close enough. And on the way back, we're driving back, and a huge warthog runs in front of the vehicle, and we hit it with a bash plate. So the only pig we killed was the pig we hit on the way back, which we then subsequently loaded onto the back of the tailgate. So we looked really cool with this huge hog, you know, out the back of the vehicle. And we on the way there, we dropped it off at like a creche, like a school. We found a school that needed meat and stuff. So my very first real bow hunting adventure was a complete disaster. But then what happened was, and you would know a little about him. I read a book by Dr. Adrian de
Yep.
Villiers, who we call Dr. Death. And so we didn't really have the guts to phone him to do a hunt because he had then crocodile river safaris or something like that, also on the Limpopo River, and it was quite close by to where we hunted. And so my good mate's mom, for his birthday, phoned Adrian and asked if he would take us boys to teach us about bow hunting.
I guess like a bit of context within the African bow hunting community. Dr. D or Adrian de Villiers is a bit of a legend, hey? Like he's written multiple books about how to hunt big game, the big five. He's hunted thousands of animals, on foot with a bow. The man is, like a whisperer in the wild. So yeah, it's a pretty big deal to be able to go hunt with him.
Look, he's the first guy in Africa to hunt the big five or the big six with a bow. So he's an absolute pioneer. I mean, he wrote Fred Bear a letter asking how does he think you should shoot an elephant, and Fred Bear sent him a written letter back via post and said it's impossible. You can't do it. And then he subsequently killed 3 elephants with his bow, and that's Adrian de Villiers. If you say to him you can't do it, he'll do it. If you say you'll never shoot that buck, I can promise you, you've just signed its death warrant. So so interesting. So now it's my good mate's birthday, and I don't even have a pickup. I've got this like little sedan car, and on the way to the farm, we stay over at another family friend's farm on the way to Dr. Death. He was only available, let's say, from the Saturday, and we were hunting from like the Thursday evening. And so just before we go to Adrian, I'm hunting at this farm, and I shoot this absolute corker of a pig, like a 12-inch curling tusker. We were laying at a dam, and we had like this whole leafy net and stuff. So I shot this really big pig, and then I didn't have like a pickup to put it in. So I put my seats down at the back, and I loaded this pig, and he had such huge tusk. And I remember the sun like shone through my back window, and you could just see this gleaming tusk. So we called him Gold Member. It was just this gold huge tusk. So anyway, the next day we're racing, and I've got this huge pig in my back of my vehicle, and
It's like a warthog, right?
a warthog, yeah, like a proper trophy warthog.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're racing to Adrian. I'm so excited, I can't sleep. I've got this pig in the back, trying to get it to the cold room, because we shot the day before. It was obviously very cold, and so it was fine. But we got our bows packed, and we are just racing to this destination we're so excited about. And we eventually, get to Adrian de Villiers' farm. We drive into the lodge, and he's waiting there, and he comes and walks out. And the first thing he says to us, "Geez, you guys want to shoot a monkey with your bow?" And there's like just a whole bunch of monkeys just lying, on the yard, which you have shot. They cause quite a bit of damage, and we just declined. Obviously back then shooting like an arrow with a broadhead is quite expensive for us. We're like students. So I was like, no. You probably only have like 4 or 6 arrows for the weekend. We don't want to waste on a monkey. But I just remember there was just monkeys lying everywhere. And he's like, yeah, you guys want to shoot a monkey with your bow? And so this journey of actually learning to bow hunt, Adrian de Villiers, everyone put bow hunting in a box. You must do this. You mustn't shoot from there. And Adrian, for me, took that box away, and he taught me to read the situation as it is. There's no rules, you know. You've got to assess every situation, if and because I was trying to hunt and try, I had this ideal scenario of how I need to shoot my animal, and so I was trying to manipulate in my mind every scenario for it to be perfect before I took a shot. And I quickly realized that's very difficult because it never happens that way. There's so many variables that happen, and so Adrian de Villiers and hunting, and he mentored me for probably 10 years, uh, took the bow hunting walk and stalk box away from me. And I then started hunting for the first time, um, which was the beginning of my real bow hunting journey.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, amazing to be able to learn from such a master for such a long period of time. I mean, it must have been incredible. I mean, I could just in this short while I spent hunting with you, I could just there were so many subtle things that you did so fast that it kind of overwhelmed my brain instantly. So I can only imagine having 10 years of being able to soak all that up must have been absolute gold dust.
Yeah. No, look, there's very few people that get that opportunity, and I am super privileged to have spent. I mean, I still talk to Adrian. I had a voice message from him today, but you know, um, still good friends. And he's just got such a wealth of knowledge that he doesn't think about it. It just rolls off his tongue. You know, advice, and just it's just unbelievable. So, yeah, just glad to have been able to have that opportunity, and it was the departure point for me and my journey to where I am
Yeah.
sort of now.
So was that when you moved to the Eastern Cape after that,
Oh,
after 10
no,
years?
so I was working in like
Sounds
big
painful.
I was working in like big construction. We were doing like sort of what you call, sort of more mega projects, World Cup. We were preparing for the
Okay.
World Cup. There were friends of mine working on the stadiums. I was working on a big shopping center, and we were just
Hmm.
like busy. And I just remember like the one day, like I was just thinking about hunting all the time. Like we had this one like very stressful meeting, and it's like all these like sort of older dudes. I'm quite a young guy, but we all have this huge meeting, probably like 40 professional people. There's like architects and project managers and engineers and all of this. We were on the contracting side as the main contractor. But anyway, I just remember we're sitting in this upmarket. Is it a mall, or we call it a shopping center, but a mall or whatever, that we're
Yeah, yeah,
busy
yeah.
getting ready for the 2010 World Cup. And I just remember I was
Okay.
like, if I could like tell you people like what I'm thinking now, like I could be sitting here in my leafy top with like face paint with my bow. Like, I really don't want to listen to what anyone has to say. Like, I just want to be in the bush hunting. So like, I lived this life in the corporate world, and it was amazing. But, I just loved, I wanted to be in the bush. Like, I would literally have walked into that meeting with my leafy top, and I just love to see the people's reaction, because if they wanted to know where my head was at, that was where my head was at. And so I only moved to the Eastern Cape, a number of years later, probably about 7 years later. But then we had moved around. You know, I got married, and we'd moved to Cape Town and a couple of places. So,
Mm.
um, I just realized that I needed to be close to animals, and that was a stock farm, animals, cattle, sheep, and that type of thing, but also nature in terms of wildlife, all your kudu and stuff. And the Eastern Cape's a special place because you can farm, and when you're working in the crawls with your animals and working with cattle, 80 meters away, there could be a huge kudu bull just, eating under a tree. It's just one of those
Yeah.
few places where uh, there's such a nice balance between wildlife and stock, where many places in South Africa are purely stock, or they're purely high
Hmm.
fenced and they're only game, you know and the Eastern
Yeah,
Cape is
yeah.
special in that there's no very few places where there's a separation. They go hand in hand,
Okay.
and so that's probably one of the main reasons why I moved to the Eastern Cape. Um,
Okay. Yeah, I remember you telling me before when we were together that it's an enormous, like one of the largest areas of like free range antelope animals, like they just hop between different property to different property, which is very different, I guess, culturally to how a lot of farming of animals in South Africa, or say farming, but of antelope, because antelope, I should just explain, in America, it's a little bit different. The all of the animals are kind of owned by the government, and there's done like a tag system and everything like that. But it's a bit different in South Africa, isn't it? In the sense that if you own the property, any animal that is on it, whether it's a springbok or a kudu, it's your property. It's the actual antelope is your property, right? So it kind of incentivizes people to have high fences, and whatever they have, they keep it, and it's kind of a bit more controlled. So the Eastern Cape is different in the sense that it has low fences. Lots of animals move around all the time, and they, hop from place to place that's ideal to them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think just to add to that, the high fences don't really stop the game movement. It doesn't stop warthog, doesn't stop bushbuck, doesn't stop inyala, it doesn't stop fallow deer, it doesn't stop kudu, eland, all those type of animals. But I would say the distinct thing more to me is that a lot of high fencing is game ranch only, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
And a lot of low
Yeah.
fence is stock farm only around the country. So
Okay.
it was
So like
more
cattle and that kind of thing.
yeah. So I would just say it was it was more that that there was this great relationship between stock and wildlife. Some of it had some high fencing and some of it not, but that wasn't really the issue. It was just that people had the two work hand in hand and live side by side together, apart from the fencing sort of scenarios that you could get.
Yeah.
But I must say, so the main draw card to where I live now, which is Bedford, is we went on holiday and we stayed at a guest farm. And as I drove into the guest farm with my family for the holiday, we were staying at a
Yeah.
few places in the Eastern Cape and sort of exploring it. I counted 24 warthogs from the gate to where we were staying. And I just looked at my wife, and this is not, I said, I found heaven. Like I just realized, like, this is where I've got to be. And I just had this moment, like, in me, I just knew that this is where I need to be. And, it wasn't long after that we completely left the city life, corporate life,
Yeah.
and basically just moved to a place that we weren't sure what the future was, but we knew that something in us changed when we were there. But seeing those 24 warthog on the way to like the to the sort of lodge or whatever, I was just like, man, I've got to be here with my bow. Like this is the place. So yeah, that was a defining moment, even though it sounds a bit strange to a lot of people. But yeah,
No, I totally get
it
it.
is what it is.
It makes complete
Yeah.
sense, right? Like you just see something and like, wow, is this what I've been doing wrong my whole life?
I mean, imagine you drive into like a cornfield somewhere where you've never been, and it's got this like you've heard about the place and the lovely people and stuff, and as you drive into like the farmer's like farm, and he's got like a little cottage there where you can book for like a few days, and you drive into the first, I don't know if it's alfalfa field or whatever you call it, and
Yeah.
you're seeing like 20 mature whitetails with like maybe like 150, 160s, and like you
Yeah.
would just be like, oh,
Yeah.
this like I've got to be here. So I had that moment, if I could relate. So that was it. There was a bunch of other game too, but I just specifically remember that. And warthogs are
Yeah.
so fun to shoot with a bow.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. I can agree with that.
if you first hunted them, if you hunted them, you'd understand,
Yeah.
why it's still such a. I've shot lots of them and just can't stop it. They're just so
Yeah. They
awesome.
have so much character. And also, I think, at least from my experience, and it's only, I've only been hunting them, if I guess, well, just that trip with you is where they predominantly are. And yeah, they're not like wild boar in the conventional sense, like a European boar or a Russian boar. Like they have far more smarts about them, I'd say. Like they still have like the character of a pig and like personality, but they really are not going to give you an easy time in any capacity. They are very smart animals, and they will get out of there quick, much like many of the other species in Africa. But yeah, a good challenge, but like a fun challenge, which, yeah, I must agree, they're fantastic to hunt. So from that moment that you had this kind of epiphany and you realized this is where I need to be, and you moved the family over, you all moved together. Um, is that kind of the moment that you started uh, being a professional hunter or a guiding people, or were you doing it beforehand? Or I know that you were also doing some like breeding. I've seen some pictures of some giant big bulls as well that you've been breeding too. So is that kind of hand in hand? You were doing those things together?
Yeah, so I did my professional hunters course,
Hmm.
and then from then on, I started guiding as a form of income. I mean, I'd hunted for many years, but never, just for myself.
Yeah, yeah,
And so part of moving down here, where I grew up, it's quite a strange thing for people to earn a living through hunting. For many people, it's just like it's a getaway. It's like maybe 2, 3 days, a few times a year, and it's a source of like recreational fun. But to me, it was more than that, and I knew that. I didn't know how much, but um, you know, so doing my professional hunters course and starting to guide clients, um, I realized that this is a lifestyle for me, and a lot of people in my area either either farm or hunt or do both for a living. So you go to a barbecue here and you say you want to hunt, how many days a year. The guy next to you sort of understands what you're talking about, but you go do that in the city, and the guy sort of looked at you like, oh, that's a bit extreme. So it was just nice to be in what for me is now a normal environment of hunting and farming. So
yeah,
I love stock. I'm a stockman at heart. Like I said, like our generations before us were all farmers in our direct line, and some of them still farm. And until I started living on a farm and working on a farm, I didn't realize how much I love stock. I always did like it, but that's actually my calling. Like I want to die with like a cow or a sheep in my hands. I love them. And I have
yeah,
the same love for nature. So um, in this journey, I just discovered that it actually means a lot more to me. The one was like an urge to like pursue this lifestyle, not knowing what it was about. But as I did it, I just discovered that it is absolutely who I am. So we're very privileged to be able to hunt, and we not hunt, we're farming or
yeah,
doing something related in the agricultural. So for me, it's the perfect sort of balance for the person I am.
yeah. Amazing. And it's always nice to hear when someone's found that balance, because I guess everyone goes through that process of figuring out who they are, what they, what makes them tick, what they really enjoy. And so, yeah, it's great to be able to discover something or even two things that are like the things that really kind of nurture you, make you like, yeah, it's like your meaning, your meaning in life. So it must be a great feeling to be doing that. So I guess from there, professional hunting, you've been doing like a bunch of big adventures I've seen. You've been super busy. Was it the last 20 something days you were hunting nonstop? Um, what's you've been, at least the things you've been telling me is that you've been getting some concessions. You've been going to other, like even other countries. Is that correct? Like other parts of Africa?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I do. So one, I am as a registered outfitter, and so I do have building a client base of my own. I do a lot of guiding for other outfitters, and so yeah, so I'm busy with those two things at the moment,
Yeah,
and on the my big passion is actually bow hunting, and even further spot and stalk bow hunting, and the Eastern Cape is just, I mean, I grew up hunting Limpopo. I'd say basically from corner to corner as a youngster, and then obviously now over the last few years living in the Eastern Cape, it's um, the terrain is so diverse and lends itself to like spot and stalk hunting,
yeah,
and um, so my longer term or my passion that I'm pursuing is really to connect with sort of high level bow hunters and getting the guys to come and experience what you experienced with me for a bit.
yeah.
And so in that process with bow hunting, I know and I've realized that you need to have very specific properties,
Hmm.
for a bow hunter to be successful, to have the right amount of opportunities. And so I'm in a process of securing a lot of concessions with that specific bow hunter in mind, who wants to go on foot, like your typical elk hunter, or your mountain goats and that type of thing. So the terrain here allows for it, and with my experience and stuff, I'm able to see which of those concessions are ideal and lends itself to that type of hunting. So yeah, that's we're looking further up north into Africa, and we're securing some really exciting places, and that will basically be bow hunting only. And yeah, I just want guys to come and experience it. You and I have talked about the bow hunting side of, or a safari. For a lot of the guys, they've got this wish list of species they want to get,
Yeah.
and which is great. That's a whole process and stuff. But I think you can test or be testament to that. Um, is that it's such an amazing learning curve.
Oh, for sure.
Like spending 7 or 10 or 14 days with a highly experienced bow hunter who shot. I'm not just talking about myself, but guys that have shot hundreds of things with their bows. That learning curve and that learning school is something that the guys don't realize, and which is just an incredible opportunity. So a lot of, for me, getting guys to come hunt with us, it's not just that, but to learn from your guide and to take all of that compressed knowledge and take it back and apply it
Oh, yeah.
when you get back home. So
I mean, I can speak to that
those are the main objectives. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I can speak to that for sure. Like in the time that I spent with you over that week, it was incredible, And I guess this is the thing that's different as well, is that obviously we have our target species that are things like, oh, you have something in mind that you want to hunt for. But also the amazing thing about hunting in South Africa and the Eastern Cape, but a lot of South Africa, is that there are so many animals, there are so many opportunities, and it's not really done in quite the same seasonal basis as America. It means that you have these chances. You are just moving through an area, and there could be any number of animals. There could be, on that day, there might be 12 different animals that you could potentially shoot. It's really just down to what you have, what you feel comfortable, or what you want to chase after. So the fact that you get so many opportunities is incredible. And I also think then the learning capacity, I've done a lot of time, I spent a lot of time hunting public land in America, and it's amazing. It's a real grind. It's like the Sufferfest is fantastic. I mean, you probably know this, like I love to suffer. It's all part of like the success, it makes it that much better. That's why we're bow hunters. But the reality is, hunting public land, you might just get a very small handful of opportunities each year. And the trouble is, if you're trying to develop as a hunter, you're trying to learn those skills, it's such a high pressure moment that the chance for fucking up is very high, and you can only learn so much each time. Basically, you get to the next step and then you make a mistake and you go, okay, I learned from that. But the trouble is, what that does is it delays your development a lot, But what I found, I've been lucky enough to come to South Africa a few times, is, I mean, I don't feel like I'm exaggerating, where I'm getting, each day I'm hunting probably 3 to as many as like 9 or 10 stalking opportunities in a day. And that just means that you get to reset, learn, try again, reset, learn, try again. You just do it again and again and again, and the amount that you grow and develop. And then also pairing that with a guide who's going like, okay, this is what went wrong last time. This is what you need to do this time. Talking you through the moment, explaining how to move, what to anticipate, where to aim, all those things. It's just, it's fantastic. And I'd say that even though it's in Africa and you're working on different species, the things I took home with me have given me so much more success on black-tailed deer, turkeys, bear, all kinds of things here, because a lot of those skills, they overlap. Okay, preaching is over now, but yeah, it's just absolutely invaluable.
But what's interesting about that is that it happens so fast.
Yeah.
So, we're going through the scenario, and it's just one after another, multiple times in a day. And you only almost have time to really ponder about those things after your trip.
Hmm.
where you can really, you relive those moments because it's so visual. Your adrenaline's going. You're so what can I say? You're so in the moment and aware of what's happening. So those images and those memories you got are like super uh, sharp.
Yeah,
Crisp.
yeah,
And then so I think it must be once you finish with a 7 or 10 or 14 day trip. Um, there's so many things to like restudy and make notes of. It's just such a furious pace of you know opportunities. um,
yeah.
yeah, before you even think of what you should have done or could do, you're ready on the next opportunity. And
Exactly.
you've got to, so it's really cool though. It's super super fun.
So, and also, this seems like a great opportunity to talk a little bit about. We're going to do some future podcasts, some future episodes with you, Fred, in the sense that yes, having this experience going away, it's like boot camp of hunting. You go there and you come back. It's like a week hunting there is like years of hunting in America. At least that's how I feel I've developed. And so there's so much you can learn, but also I think that there's things that we can do to like prep. I'm like a confessed overachiever. I like try and do everything I can. I shoot my bow a ton. I train and I do all these things to just try and be the best I can. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that do the same. So we're going to do some tips, like a guide for all the different aspects of like what hunting in South Africa is like, what hunting in other African countries is like, species, techniques, all those kinds of things. We're going to really break it down and give a kind of digestible warm up, let's say, to anyone who's thinking about going over to Africa and chasing these species around. They'll at least have the basics of like basic understanding of prep for what to anticipate and how to behave when you're out in the thickets of the Eastern Cape or anywhere else over there.
Look, and to add on to what you're saying, and it's just as you're saying this, I'm just thinking, um, part of my invitation is to a lot of bow hunting guys, and guys that want to come over and go on this journey. Is that, and it was for me like this when I started hunting, and with limited opportunity and stuff. When you're hunting, you're so conscious of what should you do next. Should you move around the tree this way? Should you go around the valley? Should you this? Should you that? So this whole like mental game of what should you do? Are you doing it right? Doubting what your next step should be. And for me, like when I started really guiding full time, um, somewhere along your journey, you stop thinking about what you're doing, and your
Yeah.
bow hunting style reflects your personality. So you'll
Okay.
it really, if you hunt with every guy, you'll see the type of person he is by the way he approaches a situation. You'll approach those situations or in life in the same manner, you know.
Mm.
So for me, like my hunting was very conscious for a long time about thinking about everything, and now I don't even think. It's just an extension of myself. But I've put myself in so many scenarios and so many situations. I just roll with my personality type of vibe, and that's how I, you know, take on my opportunities. And also, I like hunting with different guides too, because they approach the same situation different. So I'm always learning. And what I would like to do is that if there are some guys that want to go on this bow hunting journey and maybe over a 10-year period hunt with me and do
Mm.
trips this side, is to go on that journey with them so that they can learn to hunt within their own personality, gain the confidence and the experience. And but you need sort of these like 7 to 14 day experiences of just super learning, maybe over a few years. And it's just an incredible journey to like, you talking about like being an overachiever and, practicing so hard, and then you come here and that you're thinking so much before you're shooting the animal. But it would be
Yeah, yeah.
great if you could just come and relax. Sure, you've practiced hard, but you just roll into every situation. It's just flowing. And to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I want to see guys achieve, because it is a wonderful place to be at when you can get there. But it takes years of experience, um, and any bow hunting journey takes years. If a guy starts, I just know it's like a 10 or 15 or 20-year journey that they start on. Every minute's
Yeah.
exciting, but you actually really appreciate bow hunting and everything you've learned the longer you're in it, and if you start looking back about, so
Yeah.
I think we can just offer those compressed learning curves and help guys on this incredible journey of, becoming the bow hunter that you are, um,
Yeah.
and adapting it to
Yeah, that's
your
cool.
situations. Yeah, if that, yeah,
And it sounds, I must say, I maybe only experienced it in very brief occasions, but like that moment of feeling absolutely comfortable out in the middle of nowhere
yeah,
in a new kind of situation, or like whatever kind of stalking situation, but being able to, just be like at complete comfort, like that sounds amazing. So and obviously that helps when you're with a guide who's in that frame of mind, and you're like, okay, well, it's fine, I'm like, I'm in good hands. But yeah, it sounds dreamy. And I have had little moments where you're like, okay, no, I know what this is. You just work on instincts. But yeah, give it a few years, hopefully I'll get there. The funny thing you were saying there also, which is really nice about the Eastern Cape, uh, is that you're saying like this long experience, this long journey with bow hunting. You were telling me before that there's like a culture of like a lot of guys who, I don't know if they work on the farms or live in the area, but there's a lot of guys who are like in their 60s still bow hunting, right? And they've been bow hunting for a very long time. It's like the culture of walk and stalk bow hunting has existed in this Eastern Cape area for just like a really long stretch. And that's quite interesting to me, because I know in other parts of the country there is a culture of like hunting from hides or rifle hunting, if that makes sense, right?
yeah. So I think there's quite a few things that make the Eastern Cape unique, in my opinion. So I hunted a lot of, or some other places, mostly Limpopo when I was growing up, and a lot of the farms we used to hunt were, many of them were owned sort of by, people living in cities. It was sort of a getaway. So a lot of the hunting land that we were given access to were, um, owned by private people, and also obviously farmers that live in the area. But the Eastern Cape is different. It's very generational. In our area, there are very few farms that are owned by people outside of people in the community. So the kids that are growing up here
Okay.
start hunting at an early age. Farming and the game on the farm go hand in hand. So the guys are shooting and hunting from a very early age. When it comes to bow hunting, that's been growing in the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape isn't a place where there's lots of bow hunting hides and, farms set up to cater for just, that type of sitting in a hide and animals coming in. It's very free range and it's mountainous, and there's lots of rivers, and, the animals are drinking out of springs and dams and drinking troughs with where the cattle are. So, it's very difficult to pattern them like you would on some other places. And so the guys that bow hunt here
Mm-hmm.
generally start bow hunting and they start shooting warthogs. And and it's a
Okay.
very difficult animal. It's an animal that teaches you about shot placement. It gives you excitement because you can often get close to them, but they're also always difficult, and they're very fast. They've got good nose and good hearing and all of that type of stuff. So a lot of the guys cut their teeth on that, but they have a journey of, from being very young, and when they sort of get to young adults, they're still hunting, and as they get older, it's in there, it's part of their being. Some of the guys are crazy about bushbuck hunting, and you know the bushbuck they shot at 60 feels the same as what it did when they were 14 years old. That rush and that excitement. And so the Eastern Cape has a lot of these guys that, even though some of them are farming full time or they're in other industries or other businesses, they still hunt and they still guide. And so my experience is a lot of the Eastern Cape professional hunters, um, there is a huge wealth of experience and knowledge. And it is so great to see clients coming over and hunting with guys that have been hunting for 30 or 40 years. And some of the guys don't need to do it for a living, but they choose to do it because it's in their blood. So I feel very privileged to hunt with a lot of these
Yeah.
guys. And I feel great that clients that travel here get to experience that. So um, that is something really special about the Eastern Cape. Not saying there's not other good guides in the country. There are lots of good guides, but the Eastern Cape does have many of these guys, which it's awesome to be part of.
Yeah. 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 It's like a heritage of bow hunting, which is
Yeah.
very cool. So you're talking about all these animals, getting these animals on the ground. Warthog, I know, is like standard table fare. What's the kind of, I mean, from experience, because I had some of my warthog that I got on the ground in your freezer. I've seen there's a lot of different species that you keep in your freezer stocked up. What's the kind of choice, like what's your preferred kind of preparation? I know conventional Afrikaans dining is kind of the barbecue, the braai, as you guys would call it. Is that kind of standard table fare for you when you're hunting your
Yeah,
meat?
so I think we eat a lot of venison meat, and a lot of people do. Um, basically, when we take an animal, we'll take out the loins and the fillets, and generally we will barbecue those. Um, and we call it braai, but it's the same. It's the same type of thing. We don't do it over gas really. We'll do it over Eastern Cape thorn bush. Nice smelling wood and open fire. So we'll grill it that way. And then we'll debone the animal. We'll make sausage and breakfast sausages with cheese in, and we'll make lots of stew, or we'll take the back legs and roast them, and we'll take the neck and cut it up into slithers, and what we do, like what's called a potjie. It's like a type of stew.
Hmm.
We'll make
Yeah,
droewors,
so
which
good.
is like dry sausage. We make biltong, which is similar to jerky. It's not cooked though. Um, and so yeah, so we eat a lot of game, and it's yeah. So in all of the different animals have slightly different eating. Some of them are quite similar, and then some of them are quite different. But they all, I've yet to eat something which I've really disliked. Um, I think the
Yeah,
ones that sort of put you off is more the idea of eating it. But if you actually consider what they eat, it's healthy meat.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just maybe a mental thing. But yeah,
What's your what's your favorite? Do you have a preferred buck, or is it pig, or what's your preferred?
what's very nice and super underrated is zebra fillets.
Okay, interesting.
So, so the zebra, especially our zebra, have a very yellow fat. It's not necessarily like that throughout. Um, everywhere has the same type of fat. Um, I hunted, or actually, I spoke to another hunting friend who shot a zebra, and he suggested a different type of fat. He shot it in another country. Um, but so it has the sort of yellow fat, except at the fillets and the loins.
Okay.
So it's free of that, but I haven't tried that yellow fat. A lot of people say it's sort of like a little bit rancid, so people don't eat zebra, and the idea that's like a horse and a donkey type of thing puts a lot of
Yeah,
people off.
yep,
But
yep, yep.
zebra fillets are very, very, very good. Um, but there's lots. Eland, like I said, there's springbuck is very nice. It's got a completely unique taste.
Hmm.
But most of the animals are good, and if they're prepared right, they're delicious. So yeah, I can't say there's something that's not good.
Yeah, I'm sure that's often the case with anything, right? Like it's more about preparation than the meat itself. It's
We
cool.
don't have any problems with stuff like worms, and like, not really, if you know what I'm saying. Like,
Hmm.
we don't have something that makes food um, sort of unsafe to eat, really.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes, like with waterbuck, it's got these oily glands, and then when the guys are skinning the animals, the guy who's skinned shouldn't be touching the meat, and often guys will handle the meat, the same guy who skinned it, and that once that gets onto meat, you can't get that smell out. So often guys make mistakes with that type of thing and thinking waterbuck's a terrible tasting animal, but to be honestly, that oil's on its skin, it's not on the meat. So
Okay, interesting.
um, but other than that, all our meat is really actually prepared well and skinned well, is all good to go.
It never ceases to amaze me, like the level of nuance of. I mean, the thing is, learning to hunt and also doing that in America, there's only a certain number of species, right? And there's so many nuances with those. Imagine that with like 15 different types of animal. So I'm sure we're going to cover a lot of information, and it's going to be like super fascinating, at least for me, to learn all this stuff about different species in future episodes. But yeah, I'm excited to hear more, man. Yeah, it's great.
No, absolutely.
So yeah, I think unless there's anything that is like a burning desire of yours that you wanna tell us, if there's any other stories or any other kind of any info about you that we haven't touched on, I think we can wind it up for today.
Yeah, look, I think, yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to just chat, and we'll continue on this podcast and see where it leads us. But for me, it's just if I'm sitting here, like, I just get so excited about bow hunting, and I get excited for people who haven't experienced what you've experienced, you know. And so my wish and hope is that I can play a part in guys sort of experience, you know, hunting in Africa,
Me too.
and especially guys with a bow, with a rifle too. Um, I'm not,
Yeah, yeah.
negative to either or. Rifle hunting is just my passion lies with bow hunting. So if I can help guys experience this and go on this learning curve, which we've been chatting about, not just hunting the animals and experience, but there's really a wonderful journey to learn
Yeah.
about hunting and about yourself and your style. And for me to be a part of that and help guys realize that, and obviously share wonderful moments and memories with their kids and people that they love, hunting together, So I feel very privileged. And yeah, we've just got so much area to hunt and to see. It blows my mind. And I know it's going to, if it blows my mind and I live here,
Oh,
just want guys to experience it, Yeah.
oh, I mean, it never ceases to blow my mind for sure. Every time, I mean, I feel like every time we were hunting together, it's like we get into a spot and you're like, oh, here's like a whatever species of a thing, and it's like something I've never heard of. And I'm like, what? I've been here hunting for like 4 years. I've probably heard of them all by now. But every time you're like reeling off new names of different species and different ways to approach them. So yeah, it's great fun and great learning curve. So thanks again, Fred. It was amazing to have you on, and really good to hear your stories and hear your journey. And I'm look forward to picking your brains more in the future.
Absolutely, brother. Absolute pleasure. And yeah, very excited about our future talks. Going to be fantastic.
Okay, that wraps up another episode. Thanks again to Fred for all of your stories and information. There's going to be a lot more coming from Fred and a lot more detail about hunting specific animals, how everything works in Africa, and all that stuff. He's got plenty of gems that we're going to mine. So if you want to hear more of that stuff, or if you have any specific questions, then yeah, shoot me a message on Instagram at The Wild Dispatch. Or you can go one step better and actually reach out to him yourself. His Instagrams are Frederick_Hammer, and also Bow Hunting Africa is his own project that's going on. So reach out to him and ask him questions, or do it through me. Either way will work great. That's all for now. Tune in next week for another episode.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.